And thank you, Jimmy Harad. Let's hear it again. So we are continuing to activate the archetype of the alchemist, the inner magician, because the alchemist is the master of transformation. And as a master of transformation, we are able to make deep changes. Alchemists transform lead into gold, darkness into light, hate to love, and ignorance to enlightenment. So can you say yes to your inner alchemist and transformer, and claim that you are a transformer of energy? How many times have you used this ability to achieve your dreams? Over and over and over again, I am sure. How many times have you transformed yourself both physically, mentally, and emotionally? I think one of the best things that we can do is when we go on a diet or an exercise routine and you can watch your body transform. Isn't that one of the most empowering things that you can do? It's exciting, isn't it? We can actually see the changes that happen. So the alchemist has the ability to be a conduit that shifts energies. And I know that in this room we have many doctors, we have Reiki healers, and we have shamans, and is that not a way to use and to be an alchemist and a transformer of energy? Because the alchemist uses their imagination, goes on soul journeys, and steps outside the boundaries of this reality. A transformer listens with empathy to intuitively know how to shift energy. So as Unity students, we know that our thoughts, words, and action co-create our reality. And our thoughts and words are powerful, and it is the prime way that human beings bring the world into manifestation, right? I mean, you may love your dog to death, but your dog can't really talk. Not in English or not with words, and it's how we differ from the animal kingdom. We bring the world into manifestation through this ability to speak. Charles Fillmore said that words are the vehicles through which ideas make themselves manifest. And as every good magician knows, your words can cast spells, can they not? We can either use our words to lift up the energy in the world, or we can use our words to add to chaos and disharmony. And our world needs us all to step up and add to the harmony. Charles Fillmore goes on to say that all words are formative, but not all words are creative. The creative word lays hold of spirit, substance, and power. And when Jesus said to Lazarus, "Come forth," he had contact with the creative word. As spirituality increases, we fulfill the law. So he's saying that Jesus had contact with Christ consciousness, and that is the place through which he spoke, and he healed, and he performed miracles because he was in alignment with that Christ consciousness. And I think that he also was showing us the power of our words. I mean, there is a scripture when Jesus cursed a fig tree and it immediately died. And he's showing us the power of our words. We have the power to destroy with our words, or we have the power to create. And I think it's especially important for our world leaders to be conscious of their words, because the influence of their words is far-reaching, right? And we can say, well, we're so tired of political correctness, but the truth is we need to be conscious of our words because they affect the consciousness of the planet. So, again, Jesus spoke from Christ consciousness. He spoke the creative word. And I think that we can build our Christ consciousness through practice. Now, we obviously do that through prayer, through meditation, through loving kindness and compassion. And I think that we also can practice this by using a couple of words in our vocabulary. And one of the words is yes, right? Yes. What is your ratio of yes to no in your own life? Like when an opportunity presents itself, do you immediately go, yes, that's a great idea, or do you go, no, and there's 10 million reasons why you can't? Susie Moore said, yes has magic within it. So often we are afraid of life, we fear failure, we anticipate the worst, and we don't know what to expect. In doing so, and often by saying no to opportunities, we reject many of life's brilliant chances. These are often disguised as a new career prospect, an opportunity to step up at work, a surprise request from a friend, or any type of unfamiliar challenge. So, do you say no without even thinking? Because when we do say no without even thinking, particularly if it's to our own dreams and goals, what happens? We kill them before they even start to take root, right? They don't even get a chance to put down roots because we've negated it already before it has even had a chance. Tina Fey said to say yes, and then you'll figure it out afterwards. So even if you don't know how to do it, you say yes because you'll figure it out. And when you say yes, allies appear to help you. Now, we have said yes as a community to the building project. And personally, I've never done a building project before. I don't know how to do this, and my guess is probably you don't either, but together we'll figure it out. And allies have appeared for us in the form of Tom Curran, of Faith Ireland, of the members of the SUV team, the members of the Change team. So many people have stepped forward to say, let me help guide this project and let us walk through this together. When we say yes, we open the doors to things and miracles and opportunities that we never had seen before. When JFK said, we're going to go to the moon by the end of this decade, I mean, we could have said, no, you're crazy, what are you talking about? But instead, the country sort of got behind him and said, yes, we're going to do that, we're going to do that. And we didn't have the technology that we needed to have when he said this, and so we had to create the technology in order to put a man on the moon. And here's some of the things that have come out of that experience from NASA. The first is, not the first, but one of the things is a water filter. I mean, how much do we use water filters, right? Another one is cordless tools. Because when they were up on the moon, they needed something to pick up some moon rocks, and they needed something cordless, and they needed something light. And so they got together, NASA got together with Black & Decker, and now we have all these cordless tools. Long-distance telecommunications, right? We had to figure out with the satellites, like how can people in the moon talk to people on the Earth? And now we can call England, we can call, wherever we want at any time because of this technology. Here's another one, shoe insoles, right? They needed to have good shoes to walk on the moon, so there you go. Ear thermometers and memory foam. So these are some of the things that have come out of walking on the moon, and obviously the computers, which, are part of our lives right now. Another experience that's quite miraculous is actually the World's Fair in Chicago in 1883. What's interesting to me is that this World's Fair is not a part of the national memory, and nor is it really even a part of, I grew up in Chicago, it's not even a part of Chicago memory. But Chicago burned down in 1871, and so less than 15 years later, they took on this project of hosting the World's Fair, and the United States really wanted it to be done well because Paris had just had one, and they had the Eiffel Tower, and we had to create something that was, bigger or better. And so they created what was called this White City, and every state was represented by a building. There were 46 countries that were there, and there were all these things that came out of it, things like cream of wheat, juicy fruit. Spray painting, because they had to build this city, and the city was only going to last for a year, so they didn't want to really build it with bricks and mortar, so instead they made it of plaster Paris. And they had to get it painted quickly, so because they needed to do something and they had said yes to it, somebody came up with the idea of spray painting all these buildings white, and it became known as the White City. But it was such an inspirational place that it inspired the Wizard of Oz. The Baum family was there. And so we see the Wizard of Oz in the White City. The Disney family was there, and so we see Disneyland being inspired from that. And instead of the Eiffel Tower, George Ferris created the first Ferris wheel, which was humongous and had 2,000 people on it. And anyway, it was this amazing thing because the city said, yes, let's do this. So when I personally in my life say yes to something, especially if you don't know what it is or how you're going to do it or what's going to happen, amazing things can happen. And when we say yes as a community, like to the building project, or we say yes as a nation or the world, wow, I mean, we just talk about being alchemists. We can just blow the roof off of things. Another magic word is thank you. There is an organization called Soul Pancake, and you can Google it on YouTube, and they did an experiment in happiness. And they had people take a test, and then they measured their happiness. And then they met with them, and they said, all right, what we want you to do is we want you to think of someone who has influenced you for the good in your life, and I want you to write them a thank you note. So people wrote thank you notes to their teachers, their sisters, whoever. And then half that group then was asked to make a phone call that person, and read them the thank you note. And it's quite an inspiring thing to watch. What they found was the happiness index increased after writing the thank you note. But for those who were actually able to make the phone call and read the thank you note to people, their happiness increased drastically. So we know that there is power in praise. We know that there is power in appreciation. Charles Fillmore said it this way: through an inherent law of mind, we increase whatever we praise. The whole creation responds to praise and is glad. Turn the power of praise upon whatever it is you wish to increase. So where is it that you are lacking in your life? That is where one needs to praise. And we can see the power of these words so easily when you have a dog, right? I mean, do they not respond to praise like that? But if you say, bad dog, no, it's like, they curl up. How much better do you do when you are working with someone who is praising or appreciating what you do versus constant criticism? Now, it's not to say that criticism is never needed and that praise can be sometimes false, but do we not do much better under praise and appreciation? It's the whole premise of the appreciative inquiry process. What is working and what is right versus let's look at everything that's wrong? Because what happens is if what we're looking at is everything that is wrong, guess what we're going to do to it? We're going to increase it. And so we focus on what is right and what we are appreciative of. Myrtle Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, healed her body by praising it. And she literally thanked her eyes and her hands and her feet. And she just literally over and over again kept praising and thanking her body and healed herself from an illness. Now, it's pretty easy sometimes to give thanks and appreciate those things that we love in life and that we have. But how about giving thanks and praising situations that we didn't call forth or didn't feel like we called forth and that are hard and that hurt? That's a totally different ballgame here. Tanmeet Sethi, she's actually a doctor at Swedish. I Googled her, and she gave a TED Talk about the power of saying thank you. And she spoke to this whole idea of gratitude that we all know and said it is great that we do it with things that we are grateful for and appreciate, but what about those things that we don't? And she had a son who had an illness, I don't remember the name of it, but it's a pretty serious, debilitating illness of which there was no cure. And she was, as you would be if you had this happen to you with a child, she was beside herself, distraught, depressed, and was talking to a friend one day, and her friend said, she says, I don't know what to do. I pray, I meditate, I don't know what to do. And she said, you need to say thank you for this. And she said, are you nuts? I'm supposed to say thank you for my son's illness? I'm supposed to say thank you that my son is suffering? And instead she, once she got over that, she said thank you. And she would sit with her son and she would say, thank you for this illness. And then she would stroke his hair and she would say, thank you for this life and for this path that we're going to walk together. And what she noticed was a slight change started to happen, and that is that she was no longer saying it through gritted teeth. And what she also noticed is that trying to be grateful softened her resistance to him and to his illness, because she realized that she was avoiding him because it was way too painful to hang out with him. She said gratitude created a safe space where she could take a breath and with her pain instead of fighting it. So instead of fighting the pain, she said yes to it. She invited it in, and she said an interesting thing began to happen, because in those spaces of acceptance, accepting the reality of what was, there were moments of joy that started to appear. There were moments of happiness that were able to get in, because again, she wasn't resisting it, right? What we resist persists. She said that gratitude cracked her open. And you can see her talk. It's a TED Talk. You can see it directly. So here's the thing. So what about speaking the truth and speaking kindly, right? So what is the difference between speaking the truth and watching your words? Because there are times the things that we have to say are unpopular or not easy. And particularly in these times, we are called to speak up and stand up to racial slurs and anything else that might be going on right now. So how do we use our words firmly but kindly? And I think, we have some basic rules. One is speak in I statements, don't blame, and maybe listen more than we speak. Last week after the service, we had a meeting, an informal gathering of people to share their feelings and their thoughts about the election, and it was handled very respectfully and kindly, including having an opposing view. That it was handled with love and grace and kindness and compassion. Pao L Change said that words are not just elements of speech or writing, because they can be used to affect how energy travels through space. When spoken out loud, words transform into vibrations that can be used to direct energy. So they're very powerful. And you as an alchemist, these are your tools. So Jennifer, would you come up? I wanted to just piggyback a little bit on the whole yes thing, because many of you know in improv, one of the deals is that you say yes and it's kind of a brainstorming technique that people use. And the idea behind it is that you have to say yes and to whatever your partner says, and then you have to make it bigger if you can, and then they have to say yes and it's a great brainstorming. So I've even just sent her a note and said, could you do this? And she said yes. So let's thank Jennifer for coming up here. So Jennifer, what is a dream or a goal that you have in your life right now that you're willing to share?
That I'm willing to share. So, big dream of mine is to use the power of storytelling to help improve the lives of those around me.
Yes, and I could see you using the power of storytelling both verbally and through the written word.
Yes, and that's part of what inspired me to work with the Writer's Circle here It's been really helpful for me and for others. So not only my goal, but the way that I'm doing it.
Yes, and as you discover this and do this on your own, you're bringing it to the community through the Writer Circle, so you're not walking this alone, and you are helping others to also find their inner writer.
Yes, and yes, and it is helping my growth tremendously, because as I present, let's talk about this today, I have to do it too.
Yes, and isn't that the way it is?
Yes, and it's
and.
challenging me to be a teacher and to learn and be a student.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you.
Give her a round of So the next time you have an idea about something, especially if it seems far-fetched or it's something outside the norm of what you would normally do, say to yourself, yes, and just see where it takes you. And if a friend comes to you and said, I'm kind of tossing this idea around, play the yes and game with them and see where it takes them, because it suspends judgment for a little bit, and it allows the creative process, the creative word, to begin to step in. And I think that's part of aligning with the Christ consciousness. The yes and thank you, and I'm grateful. So, again, words are not just elements of speech or writing, because they can be used to affect how energy travels through space. When spoken out loud, words transform into vibrations that are used to direct energy. Your words have the power to lift up and harmonize and transform this energy for good, or to add to chaos and disharmony. So we build our spiritual consciousness. Whatever we appreciate increases in value. Recognize that you are an alchemist, that you are a master of transformation, that you can transform darkness into light, ignorance to bliss, and hate into love. You have the ability to be a conduit that shifts energy, because you are a miracle. You are this transformer. You are this alchemist and this magician. So go forth and cast your spells.